Yeah, there it is. Hey, look, Carl, there it is right there, down here. You see that the mouse travels with Carl right there, fourth line down. Yeah, that's us, boy. Hey, man, I know it's been a minute. It's Monday. I apologize. This is supposed to go out on Saturday. And what I'm going to do to mend my ways is from now on, I'm going to have it shot ahead of time so that I upload it on Saturday. I'm no longer going to try and shoot it on Saturday because obviously that's just not working great. And I'm just going to be right up front. The reason I don't have a painting for today's episode, and I think it's episode 36, Sunrise Apartments on Key Biscayne in Florida. The reason I don't have a painting now is that I did a painting when I lived there, and it's really good. And it had a swimming pool for the apartment for the tenants, and the owner strung a big flag across the pool during on the 4th of July weekend. Now I know what you're thinking because, like, if you put the American flag up today over anything, it looks like you're a Trump person. Well, this was in the year 2001 or 2002. So Trump, that was another kinder, more gentler time, and Trump wasn't on the horizon yet, except for a New York City realtor, investor, but he was a pedophile then, just like he is now. But I digress. So I have a great painting, and in fact, it's such a good painting. I loved the painting when I did it. I'm going to use that for the book and for the print for this week. So I apologize. I couldn't find it. I know I've got it, so that's why I'm not stressing too much about it. But it's been a crazy ass week for me. So, and I can't tell you why, because it's job related. But so there I am. I'm at Palm Bay Towers, and I'm living in North Beach, Miami, and I want to get out of there. And they sold the building and all that. So, and I wanted to get to Key West. Of course, I can't divulge too much about that because that's still in the future, because this is a little bit about time traveling. But let me just back up for a minute. Welcome back to Travels with Carl. And I always like to talk a little bit about what Travels with Carl is. Carl is a 31-foot Alumilite motorhome who was named Carl before I acquired him. Okay, and it's about me and Carl and travel, but it's really more about the journey of my life as an artist and the different jobs that I've had to do to survive as an artist, and social and political commentary, because I started working when I was 12. I'm 68 now. So it's 56 years of working compressed into 1 year, and that will be turned into a book, okay? At the end, a print, a piece of as a painting, and a print, two kinds of prints done every week, a limited edition and an open edition, which will be available on my website, which is what? www.what? Van Gogh, VANGOGH. It's because it's Van Gogh Incorporated, but it's not INC, it's INK. So the open edition will be available on that website. The book will be available, I'm not sure how, probably on Amazon, but hopefully I'm going to find a real publisher, so it'll be in like real regular bookstores, and they'll let me go on a book tour. But it'll have 52 color plates, at least one for every job, 52 short stories. And it's not just a transcript of what I'm rattling off the top of my head now, because it's actually they'll actually be fine-tuned, they'll be like as good as like Hemingway's short stories, kind of like in that quality level, they won't have any spelling errors or things like that because I've hired master proofreaders. Okay, this time. And so, here we go. So that's what Travels with Carl is all about. Every week I bring, supposedly, and I'm going to mend my ways because I've been fucking up. And from now on, every Saturday, I'm going to be bringing it to you. By changing how I do this, I'm going to film it during the week and then upload it on Saturday because, I think it's like 3 or 4 times in a row now I've been doing this on Monday. Someday I'll be able to explain some of the personal difficulties I'm going through right now. Okay, but they're job related, so I can't talk about it right now. But they're, it's all part of the story. It's all part of the journey, all part of traveling with Carl, man. So here we go. So fast forward, there I am. I'm in Miami Beach, and really my goal is Key West, but I'm good with South Beach or Key Biscayne or whatever I can find. So I go to AA. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. I'll have 26 years clean and sober on May 1st. So just a couple weeks away, I'll have 26 years clean and sober. So the reason I'm bringing that up now, not only because I'm here to help people if they have mental health issues, that's part of my shtick, as well as ending the war on drugs. Okay, which is also I'll plug my book here in a minute. But I met someone. Let me just do it this way. I met someone at an AA meeting that just so happened to know someone that was connected with this property. Okay, that's how I'm going to leave it because I don't want to out anybody. But so I go down there and I apply for a job because they needed a resident manager and I need an apartment, right? So it's a win-win, and I got years under my belt, and as you've seen in the hotel industry. Okay, so when it comes to hotel and accommodating guests, I'm pretty good. Now, had I ever managed an apartment building before? No. Okay, so they've got that against me, but the way it's only 21 units, okay, and all I do is I keep it occupied, as fully occupied as I possibly can. I help turn the apartment when somebody moves out, and it wasn't a high turnover place, okay, and then I contact vendors, air conditioning people, which was the big one. We had a person that did the landscaping. I did a little bit, but we had a landscaper that we paid. We had vending machines that I had to, and I banked. I took the money that I collected the rent, took the rent to the bank. So I got the job anyway, and I got a studio apartment on the first floor. Okay, and it paid a pathetic amount of money, but it was okay because I had everything I needed. I covered all my bills, barely, but it did cover my expenses. But now I'm living on the island of Key Biscayne, which you may or may not know this, but Richard Nixon, when he retired, they got a house on Key Biscayne. And in fact, Key Biscayne, because he was there was a no-fly zone over the whole island. So you didn't have to worry about airplanes buzzing over top of you like I do now. I'm living under a flyway, which is okay. I like it. I wave to them as they go over my house. That's how low they are. But so Key Biscayne is pretty cool. It's a neat little island. It has a sort of a jaded past because there was a real racial disparity, and there was another island that was close to Key Biscayne, which was the island that black people were allowed to use. And I'm going to talk a little bit about steering in this episode because that's a real estate term, right? It's illegal not to rent if a black person and a white person and a Hispanic person or a man or a woman or whoever comes to you, you know, or to rent an apartment, you're not allowed to discriminate against people, okay? But discrimination is a fucked up thing, and it's a real big part of our history. And I'm always happy that I was on the right side of history, because I integrated the Sunrise Apartments. Now, I did not know when I did it that it was going to be a big dust up. Okay. We had one woman living there, and I want to say she was Puerto Rican, but I could be wrong about that. But I think she was Puerto Rican. Okay. But everybody else there was white. And I just thought it was because Key Biscayne was so white. Well, there was a school on Key Biscayne for marine biologists. Well, that was turned out to be my hunting ground, and so like I would put, whenever I had an apartment that I knew was going to come up, and I'd go up there and put flyers up, and I was pulling people out of the school because, I know where they go to school. I know a little bit about them already. They're probably not selling crack, if they're going to school. I mean, they could be. RFK was selling cocaine when he was at Harvard, so, Yeah, but Bobby Kennedy's a whole other story. I'm not even going to get into that right now, okay? I'm hoping to get on the Daily Beast because Joanna Coles does a really good Milana impersonation. And I've offered to do my RFK impersonation while I'm on the show, okay? For the whole show, okay? Now that's not easy because it really hurts my throat to do this. But that's what Robert Kennedy sounds like. Oh, and if you're going to bust me because he has some kind of a disability or whatever, fuck you. Okay. I don't give a fuck. All right. So I'm on the Key Biscayne now, and I'm pulling people out of this school, and I rented an apartment to this guy who was black, and I forget where he was from, but he wasn't from the United States. He was an immigrant who came here for school, but he was a real nice guy. And I'll never forget, man, that people commented when he, and they had a great swimming pool, and I used it all the time, and this guy loved the pool. And there were people that stopped using the swimming pool because this guy was using the swimming pool, okay? And then I realized a few people made comments to me that I had broken the mold, or I forget what they used, the term that they used, but a couple of the tenants said, yeah, he's the first black person that's ever lived here. And I could tell there were a couple people that it probably offended them or bothered them. And oh man, I just felt like, oh, fuck you, motherfuckers. And I couldn't believe it because the owner was really cool and his wife was really cool, and most of the tenants were cool, but I realized there was some rednecks there, which I hadn't counted on. So, like when it comes to steering, I don't think I talked a lot about my friend Tim Redmond. But I suppose this is a good time to bring Tim into the video this week, because since we're talking about steering and we're talking about racial discrimination, and Tim was one of my best friends in high school. Okay, I had like a pack that I ran with, and albeit Tim was, as far as I can remember, the only black guy that was in my really tight-knit group of friends. But I'll never forget one time me and Tim were in New Jersey, and we drove down to the ocean from Philadelphia, or from Westchester, just outside of Philadelphia. We drove to the ocean. We stopped at this restaurant in New Jersey. Now, I know that New Jersey has pockets of really prejudiced people. But I see this cool looking old diner, you know, like the ones that are all chrome and glass and everything. And me and Tim go into this diner, and I mean, this has nothing to do with Key Biscayne, but it does have to do with with racism. And so you know which side of the road I'm on. It should be pretty clear after this conversation. But me and Tim go in there, and there's a hostess, and she hands us two menus. And so me and Tim each have a menu in our hand. It wasn't a fancy diner, but it was still a kind of diner with a hostess, and they were going to seat us. And so she was looking for a table, and it was right around lunchtime, so it was a little busy in there. As far as I remember, most of the tables were full. Now, this guy comes walking towards me, or not, but about to walk past me, and me and Tim are both standing there looking at the dining room, and this dude snatches the menu out of Tim's hand and said, "You'd have to pick a lot of cotton to eat a meal in here, boy." And I looked at Tim, and I looked at this fucking redneck motherfucker, and I said, "Oh, that's okay, man. Me and Tim will share this menu." And I just stared at him like hoping he was going to jump because I was going to fuck him up right in front of his buddies. So he takes the menu that he snatched out of my friend's hand and walks back over to his seat and sits down. And there's some other guys at his table. I hand my menu to Tim and just keep my eyes on this guy. Now, I already looked around, and I could see there's a window where the waitress gives the tickets to the cook, and I'd already seen the cook through that window, who also happened to be a black man. I still got my eyes on this motherfucker that's stolen a menu from my friend. And Tim said, "Let's get out of here, man. This place is fucked up." I go, "No, it's cool, man." He goes, "No, I'm worried." He goes, "They might spit in our food or something." I go, "Nah, look over at the cook's window, bro. I think we're good." And this black guy just had a smile from ear to ear because he's seen that I was ready to fuck this redneck motherfucker up right in the restaurant in front of all of his friends. So the waitress now, or the hostess, combination hostess waitress, she comes back over now, and she's seen what happened. So she goes, "I'm so sorry about that." She goes, we get some strange people in here once in a while." I said, "That's all right, ma'am." I said, "I'll take care of him if need arises." And she walks us over to a table. I just nod and smile because I'm walking past the kitchen now. I just nod and smile at the brother in the kitchen because he's seen the whole thing go down. I know he's just going to probably hook us up now because he knows that, A, I'm not taking no shit from anybody about like that. And B, I'm just like a stubborn motherfucker, and I'm not going to let somebody run me out of a good place, a good diner. And I could tell it smelled good in there. I could tell and I was hungry, okay? Which made me extra wily. So anyway, we sat down, we had our meal, and the good old boys are still over there drinking coffee as I walked out. And we finished our meal, and because we were headed to the beach, so we weren't going to dilly dally. We wanted to get fuel up and get out of there. And so we go out, get in the car, and as I'm backing away, I'm flipping off the guy in the diner, just kind of hoping that he would come out so I could fuck him up in the parking lot and not break a bunch of glass and shit inside the restaurant. Or run him over, one or the other. Because I was crazier then than I am now, and I'm still kind of crazy. Every once in a while, I just get fucking crazy. I mean, not in a bad way. I mean, in a good way. Like, there's times that you have to get crazy, and there's shit that happens in this world that you got to stand up for. You got to be on the right side of history now. And if you're watching this video and you can see what's going on in our country, you know, we have a situation now. So anyway, let me finish the story first, because that was just a little story about one of the most outrageously just in your face cases of racism, you know, I've ever experienced. Kind of threw me for a loop for a minute there, but I wanted to share that story because I mentioned the brother that I rented an apartment to in Key Biscayne. Now, this guy, he was like an exemplary tenant. There were some tenants that were late with their rent every single month, you know, and they made me put the notice on the door that you have 3 days or whatever it was in Florida. You had 3 days to comply, or you could, you know, they could step it up to the next level. But I worked there for almost a year, and while I was there, this is the most important part, while I was there, I established a relationship with a art studio in Homestead. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Homestead, Florida or not, but Homestead was almost wiped off the map with a Category 5 hurricane years and years ago. In fact, the studio that I rented in Homestead was in one of the like 5 buildings that were still standing that were there before the hurricane. And it was an old school, and this woman, Ellie Schneiderman, turned it into a art studio complex where you would pay a certain amount of rent. She did a little marketing. We had an open studio once a month, I think, or twice a month, where people from the community would come by, and then they could tour the art studios, and you would be in your studio for those events. I can't remember, it was either 1 or 2 of them a month, but it was pretty cool, and I'll get into that later, because I don't think I count that as a job, but I landed that studio while I was in the apartment in Key Biscayne, and that took me one step closer to realizing my dream in Florida. Okay, I mean in Key West. Sorry, I'm gonna leak in just a little bit about it because you'll see. I lived in like, well, again, I don't want to give away the future yet, but I lived in like 5 or 6 places. I call it around the Horn, around the southern tip of Florida, and Sarasota was the last one. And then, so I'm still in Key Biscayne. I got a studio in Homestead, and I'm working where I'm living as a resident manager. So it was great because I had all kinds of time to paint in my studio. I got interviewed by the Key Biscayne newspaper, and I was getting some press. And again, Key Biscayne was a cool place. One day I was bicycling around because it's just cool, you know, it's an island, and we had a whole bunch of area on the beach where sea turtles came up and laid their eggs and stuff. Bill Baggs State Park, I think it was called, something like that. But anyway, I digress. But one day I saw Keith Richards and Mick Jagger somebody was driving them, and they were in the back seat of a black Mercedes S, like a 250S or a 400S. And they turn and they're looking out. They see me. I made eye contact with them, and they both turned their head at the same time and looking out the back window at me. And I just waved to them like to see if I was gonna. They were looking like to see if I was gonna follow them on my bicycle. You know, but I'm not like that, man. I don't hound people like for an autograph or for a picture or something like that. If they're doing their own thing, I'm not going to interrupt them. You know, if I'm at their show or something, that's different. But they're just doing their thing. Turns out that one of their managers or record company executives, as it turns out, I remember reading about this later, actually had a house on Key Biscayne, and that's why they were there. I just surmised that, but Anyway, I did read that was a fact, that they did have a connection with somebody on Key Biscayne. So Nixon, of course, was dead by the time that I lived there, but it was a cool island. And like I said, it had some nice state parks, and it was covered with iguanas. And that's a long story I won't get into this time, but that's enough about the Sunrise Apartments, okay? Because it was kind of cool. All right, I loved the swimming pool. I had to take care of the pool too. That was tricky, but I got it dialed in. I had to test the water and mix chemicals and shit. But it was great because I was able to do my artwork there while I was kind of on duty. And then I had my studio that I went to as often as I could. And then from there, I would take trips down to Key West from my studio. Excuse me. So my book is Amendment 21-A, and it's the word amendment, the number 21, the dash symbol, and the letter A. And you can find that on Amazon. And, okay, you know what? Hold up. Since I'm in my apartment, I'm not in Carl today, as you can tell. You see that greenhouse out there? Is it too bright? I hope you can see that. You can see my greenhouse out there, which I've been building. But what if changing one thing could change the world? This is that one thing. Ending the war on drugs, I like to call it prohibition, will be the single largest and most important change in the law in my lifetime. It will positively change the city you live in, the country you live in, and the world that we all live in. It's hard to even wrap your mind around the changes that this will bring about until you read this book. I think about all the unnecessary pain and suffering this war brought to us all, and I'm just glad I was able to stop it. Just say no, stand with Van Gogh against illegal prohibition. See, there it is right there. Van Gogh.inc. But it's not available on my website. It's available at Amazon. And just go right to the book section, type in the title just like that, or my name under author, and it'll come up. And you'll be glad you did, because I'm telling you, prohibition, I've been watching this since I was 12 years old, okay? Hasn't gotten any better, no. In fact, it's gotten a lot worse. And in that time, in my lifetime, thousands and thousands of people have died because of this war on drugs. Okay, prohibition of alcohol, I'll talk a minute about it because I finished early on my Key Biscayne story. Prohibition from alcohol, which only happened in the United States, and it only happened for 14 years. Okay, it was a huge fucking mistake. Okay, and it's the first and only time that they had to create another amendment to get rid of the First Amendment. So that's what Amendment 21 did. Amendment 21 legalized alcohol after Amendment 18 had made it illegal to make it, produce it, consume it, whatever. Well, they forgot to all the other drugs, okay, which became more and more popular. They were around during that Prohibition time, but they were not nearly used as much as they are today, okay, because people have more problems today. And people want to escape reality. That's why they drink, okay? A lot of people escape reality by using drugs, okay? In fact, Alcoholics Anonymous says about 1 in 10 people have a substance abuse problem, okay? Most people, if they're an alcoholic, and I'll include myself in that scenario, okay, use drugs also, okay? But like, I never became addicted to drugs. The only mind-altering substance I ever got addicted to was alcohol. So the concept that you can't legalize heroin or you can't legalize cocaine is just completely wrong. It's one of the many lies that our government has fed us, okay? So I'm here to change that. And before I die, I'm going to fucking change it. Now, I know that Iggy Pop just performed at Coachella. I have never been to Coachella, which is a fucking tragedy, okay? And I'm going to make sure next year that doesn't happen. But he sang, I Am a Passenger. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in every episode, I end by saying, let's ride. Well, that comes from two things. One, I love riding motorcycles and bicycles, and anything with two wheels, I'll ride it. But it also comes from that song. It is, I am the passenger, and I ride, la, 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 la. And he has the whole audience singing. It's a fucking great song, man. So let's ride. Hey, Carl. Yo, what's up, Rich? Hey, Carl, what time is it? It's time for Travels with Carl, baby. Let's roll. Let's ride, Carl.